18 before 7 here on the John Gambling Show. 40 days to the presidential election. There are a lot of other races up, and one includes the New York senatorial race, the position held now by Kirsten Gillibrand. Also, all of the legislatures in Albany are up for re-election as well, and or not. And one of the ladies that would like to take over where Kirsten Gillibrand now sits is Wendy Long. She's an attorney. She is the Republican candidate for Senate. Hello, Wendy. Good morning.
Good morning, John.
Nice to talk with you again. There is a very interesting front page list in USA Today this morning. Don't know if you've gotten to it just yet, but what they have taken the growth rates, the economic growth rates of all of the states over the last, I think, 2.5 years, and they have put them down and they have divided them by red, blue, and the swing states in black. Interestingly enough, North Dakota is up 30 points, 30%. South Dakota, 14%. And the District of Columbia is 13.8%. Those are the top three. Now, the first two have to do with energy. North Dakota is ripping it up when it comes to natural gas and oil. South Dakota is as well. But the District of Columbia is up 13%, and the only thing they produce is government.
Right.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yep, no, it's absolutely true. And I hadn't seen the article you're referring to, John, but, there was another study I saw recently that said that the Washington, D.C. metro area had the highest per capita income of any area in the country this year, and it outstripped Silicon Valley. That tells you something.
And the only thing they produce is pushing paper.
That's exactly right. Using other people's money. They're not producing any real growth in the economy.
No, and they just keep taking it. I always say that the problem we have nationally, and I think to a certain degree on a statewide basis, but not nearly as much, but nationally, is not too little money, but too much money. There's just too much money. It's unmanageable.
Well, there's certainly too much money going to Washington.
That's what I mean, right?
That's why one of the things I've proposed in my campaign is to reinstitute Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan's Fisk report. It was something he did annually for New Yorkers, because New York, in a way, becomes the nation's piggy bank because we're a relatively wealthy state. You wouldn't know that from the level of growth here, but we need to keep New Yorkers aware of, so we're such a high-tax state anyway, how much we're sending to Washington and how much we're getting back. And the principal goal of that, obviously, is to reduce the amount we send to Washington.
Speaking to the growth of New York State, 0.8%. New Jersey, minus 0.6%, and Connecticut minus 1.8%.
Right.
So we are above the line here in New York, but the states surrounding us are actually they've diminished.
Right, and a lot of that, John, is precisely the reason you said about the Dakotas. It has to do with energy. I mean, Pennsylvania, if you go to the southern tier of New York and you look over the border into Pennsylvania, there's a boom going on there that's like what you see in the Dakotas because they're drilling for natural gas. And we're not doing it here in New York, and the economy is so depressed, and the level of unemployment is so high, and they're just sitting there looking over the border into Pennsylvania. It's just incredible, but we have that same resource under our feet, and if we would just tap it, we could get manufacturing going again in New York, and it would make a huge difference in the economy.
I couldn't agree with you more. Now, the governor has sort of opened the door on this one, and I think that we will be probably in the not-too-distant future going for the natural gas that does lie on that border between New York and Pennsylvania, which will be a very good thing, not only for the rest of the country, but the state upstate. Now, you've been upstate. You've traveled around. You've talked with the people up there. It's a horror show.
It is unbelievable. It is. There is anger, and not only anger, John, but fear. There is. You go to all these wonderful centers of commerce and industry and manufacturing upstate, and they're just dead, and the people are getting very angry and fearful. And it's no wonder. I mean, the unemployment rate in New York has been stuck. It's not moving at all. I mean, it's even worse than nationally. All the 13 cities in New York. So it's a very bad situation. We've had 44 months straight of unemployment over 8%, and even those numbers, as you frequently hear, it's absolutely true, those numbers are low because it doesn't reflect all the people who have just given up.
Wendy, I would have to ask you that if you are elected to the Senate, your view of this whole partisanship and complete and total stalemate, I would even have to ask you, why do you want to do this?
Well, you know what? I want to do it because we've reached a real tipping point in this country. I mean, all across New York, as I go around and talk to people, and I sense this in the rest of the country too, people just feel that the country we love is slipping away from us. This is not America. America is about growth and opportunity and freedom and generosity. And right now, it's not about any of those things. It's also about pride on the international front and security and standing strong for America's interests and our allies. It feels like, and I was just pretty young then, but it feels to me and feels to other people sort of like 1979, the economy, the international situation. And so that's the reason I want to do it. I have school-age children, and I want them to grow up in the America that I grew up in. And I just think ordinary citizens like me who've never run for public office before, if we really care, and we can, need to stand up and say these people in Washington are not doing the job, and we've got to put some people in there who will do the job. I stood in front of the national debt clock, and I made a pledge that if I'm elected, unless it starts going in the other direction, I'll take a 25% pay cut. And that's the only way these things are going to get done. There have to be consequences for the legislators.
You know, your point about it looking like 1979 is certainly spot on. There's no question about it. And as you said it, and as I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking to myself, why don't more Republican candidates like yourself, including Mitt Romney, why don't they use that? Because, and I'm going to give you an idea on kind of a different maybe tact on it, but take 1979 as the picture, and then the next cell in the movie, the next reel, shows that you can change it. It doesn't have to stay the way it is. The economy, the people, the stagnation, the international mayhem that is going on, because Ronald Reagan did change it, and Mitt Romney can as well.
Absolutely. And I remember there was a feeling that, oh, my goodness, it can never change. And people were amazed. And then Reagan did these things that seemed counterintuitive to people, like slashing, tax rates. And everybody thought, oh, my goodness, we're in such a mess. How's that ever going to work out? And it did work out. So there is a roadmap. We had a leader who did that on many fronts, and we have to replicate it. I think that's exactly the idea.
Now, maybe I'm being selfish with my question here, but Joe and I have been talking that there has been absolutely no political advertising here in the New York tri-state area. Is there just no money available, or what's going on? Or are you saving all your bullets for October?
Well, on the presidential level, there hasn't been, because New York is the bluest of blue states.
Right, that I understand.
And you go to other states and you can't. I mean, you're just being bombarded. So that's the reason there. In my specific race, I'm just raising money to pay for my own campaign. I mean, it's honestly, fundraising is so hard this year, and I didn't anticipate this fully when I got in, but there is such a sense of emergency about the presidential race and about taking back the Senate. Have
the PACs all sucked all the money out of it?
Largely, yes, but there are super PACs who are getting involved in my race. We've seen them already. I mean, I've woken up in the morning during the Republican convention. I stayed here in New York to campaign. I thought it was a better use of my time, but I turned on the TV and I saw super PAC ads about my race against my opponent. It said, let's elect a senator with our values, Wendy Long, and I thought, wow, that's nice. But of course, I didn't have anything to do with it because it was a super PAC.
Okay, but that seems to be, and we'll not get into the connection between candidates and super PACs, and I don't mean just yours, but the whole thing is a scam. I mean, come on, it's a way around the voting rules and the fundraising rules. But that's a discussion for another time.
Well, I agree with you. I think it's absolutely
it's a scam.
Silly.
Yeah.
It's just totally silly. Election spending is free speech, and when I say that, it benefits my opponent more than me because she has way more money. But I just think As long as there's disclosure, people should be able to put their money anywhere they want. Candidates should be able to spend it any way they want, and leave all this complicated election law and super PACs and stuff out of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Anyway, we'll talk between now and November again, okay?
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Wendy. Good luck to you. Wendy Long wants to take over for Kirsten Gillibrand. 8 now before 7 o'clock. I mean, this super PAC stuff, we only fool ourselves with this stuff. It's all the same money. It's just being funneled in a different way. We're going to do a different name.